Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. Bruce Carrington is looking for activity and big fights with leading featherweight names. Bruce Carrington is hoping for a WBC featherweight title shot, but he will value activity over waiting. Last week, Carrington knocked out Dmitry Bivol in a third round to win the WBC featherweight final eliminator in Vegas. That fight now puts him in a good situation, but his division is log-jammed. Carrington is the #1 contender. Stephen Fulton holds the WBC featherweight title, while Ray Vargas is the champion in recess. The other title holders appear to have already had fights in the works. Carrington outlined all that he knows about his immediate future and told boxing scene at the moment, "I don't know. I'm hearing that Stephen Fulton is going to go up to fight O'Shaquie Foster, the WBC junior lightweight champion. Unless the WBC can mandate me to fight Stephen Fulton for the WBC title. If that doesn't happen, then hopefully we can find a way for me to fight Ray Vargas, and if Fulton goes up to 130, maybe Ray and I could fight for the vacant title." As for his return, Carrington, the 27-year-old from New York City who trains in Vegas, was clear when he'd be back, but whether it is in a title bout or not is uncertain. "I'm fighting in the summer," Carrington said. "It can be pretty frustrating, especially when my ambitions are to fight for a world title this year." Carrington added, "It's going to happen at some point in time. The champions don't want to risk losing their titles, and I take that as a compliment because they recognize me as a risk. The time will come and I just have to be patient, but not too patient." Carrington moved up the ranks quickly, but he didn't plan on being fast-tracked to a title. "I honestly was coming into the pro game, not minding to take it a little slower," Carrington said. "Things happen when your ambitions change. It wasn't because of my age, it's more so I want to fight for these world titles now. I'm ready. I've worked with certain world champions in my division, and it gave me the confidence to be like, I want to fight for these guys now and continue to make a statement. I'm the best in the game," Carrington said. Carrington is looking to stay active no matter what. "I hate sitting around out of the ring for too long," Carrington said. "It keeps me on my toes. It keeps me sharp." At minimum, he's got the right idea. He shouldn't be sitting on his hands, waiting for the phone to ring, waiting for a world title opportunity. If nothing else, get out there, stay busy, and stay sharp. So by the time a world title opportunity comes, you're more than ready. Looks like all the champions are spoken for at this moment. Angelo Leo is fighting Tomoki Kamita. He's the IBF champion. WBO champion Rafael Espinoza, he's got a fight coming up. Rumors abound Stephen Fulton may be moving up in weight in his next fight to fight O'Shaquie Foster. Bruce mentioned that. And the WBA champion, he just fought not but a few weeks ago. And thus, the world title picture is in fact log-jammed. And the danger for Bruce is that at 27 years old, it's not going to get easier to make 126. It's going to get harder. The looming threat is that he may have to leave this division before he becomes a world champion in it. There's a growing desire to see Bruce Carrington in there with the best and brightest at 126, but when they're not available, what the hell's he supposed to do? All he can do is keep busy. So he's talking about getting back out there over the summer months, and then hopefully in the fall or winter, a world title opportunity might open up. We'll see. But you can hardly criticize him for all the champions being spoken for. What can he do? Upstairs at Super Middleweight, World Boxing Council President Mauricio Suleiman took to his social media and stated, "It is very unfortunate that Diego Pacheco has pulled out of the process for the ordered fight versus Christian Mbilli. The WBC hereby cancels tomorrow's purse bid offer. Boxing insider Rick Glacier, reacting to that news, said, "In what nowadays is called ducking, Diego Pacheco is now moving on from Christian Mbilli in an ordered WBC eliminator. This was truly a duck. I'm sure Pacheco's promoter, Eddie Hearn, didn't want to take such a risky fight for his own duck, Pacheco." I noticed that ever since Rick Glacier started doing a lot of business with Golden Boy Promotions, he's had this and that to say about Matchroom, this and that to say about Top Rank. More so than before. He's been a lot more vocal. It's almost like Oscar's got his hand up his ass and he's Oscar's puppet. Echoing Oscar's disdain, Oscar's contempt for Matchroom, and some contempt for Top Rank. Lest we forget, Oscar had this and that to say about Top Rank in his latest installment of Clapback Thursday. And you'll notice that Rick Glacier, who used to be very high on Top Rank and the way they did things, now he's been laying into them too. Is this a duck? Does Diego Pacheco pulling out of this ordered purse bid qualify as an according to Hoyle duck? I'm ambivalent because by the metric that we categorize ducks as being ducks, this does qualify, but I happen to think if they actually fought, Diego would knock out Christian Mbilli. Oh yes, Christian Mbilli labored with a one-handed Sergey Derevyanchenko in his late 30s. Stylistically, it's not a fight that I think favors Christian because Christian is a pressure guy and Diego is a boxer puncher. Stylistically, boxer punchers got the edge over pressure guys. Can't just stand in front of a boxer puncher because they're gonna make you pay for it. A good example is Keyshawn Davis versus Gustavo Lemos, how that fight played out. Another good example is Jaron Ennis versus Roman Villa. Roman Villa's a pressure guy, Jaron Ennis is a boxer puncher, and you saw what happened. I think the exact same thing would happen if Christian Mbilli and Diego Pacheco fought. Diego would lay him out. He's got enough punching power to do it and boxing acumen. Though ultimately, anecdotes are no substitute for an actual fight. So while I might think that Diego would win it, it really doesn't matter if they don't fight. Who Diego is rumored to be fighting in his next fight is Trevor McCumbee, MAGA McCumbee, the same McCumbee that gave former champion Caleb Plant all he could handle when they fought. He actually knocked him down. That's who Diego's supposed to be fighting in his next fight. And compared to Christian Mbilli, the Mbilli fight is a better fight than the McCumbee fight, so all the elements are there that constitute a duck. That this fight was ordered and you decided to pull out to go fight a more beatable guy, even though I don't think Diego's actually scared of Christian, and I think Diego would beat Christian. At the end of the day, that's just what I think. Outwardly, to somebody else, it looks like a duck. The hang-up was the location of the fight. The Mbilli people wanted it in Canada, whereas the Pacheco people wanted it in LA. I believe that's what it was. They wanted it in Los Angeles, which left both teams at an impasse, at a stalemate, and the resolution would have been going to a purse bid. Your bid versus mine. Why didn't Matchroom go through with it? Because then you have to make sure you beat Eye of the Tiger management, and to beat them, you may have to overpay. You may have to put up a bid that is in excess of this fight's commercial value. To ensure that you win, you're gonna have to put up a generous amount of money, but for doing that, they pulled Pacheco out, likely because he's already ranked at number 1 via the WBO. So who needs the WBC? That's what they're telling themselves, and that's why they withdrew. But like I said, outwardly, outside looking in, it looks like a duck. So I mean, if somebody tells me that they think Diego just ducked Christian Mbilli, I won't argue with you. I won't. But if they actually fight, my money's on Pacheco, and that's all I have to say about that. Upstairs at light heavyweight, I'm sure you've already heard Dmitry Bivol has informed the World Boxing Council he's vacating his light heavyweight title ahead of tomorrow's scheduled purse bid for his ordered fight with David Benavidez. Bivol plans to proceed with an Artur Better Beef trilogy fight, according to a letter obtained by The Ring. The letter reads, "As you know, this office represents Dmitry Bivol. Mr. Bivol has been placed in a position where, unfortunately, he is being forced to relinquish the World Boxing Council light heavyweight title. Everyone in boxing knows that there is a commitment for a third bout with Artur Better Beef. generally considered to be the second best light heavyweight in boxing, we are working to consummate that bout. In addition, we are dismayed at the inability of the ratings organizations to adhere to the rotation system set up many years ago. You are aware that the IBF has claimed to be the lead organization with justification for the next Bivol bout. We wish to be courteous to those involved in the potential purse bid scheduled for tomorrow. Thus, we notify you of the relinquishment of the belt before that time so people will not incur needless travel expenses. Mr. Bivol appreciates such courtesies from the WBC as were afforded to him in the past. They said it right there. They said it in plain English. What I told you. The WBC's not next in the rotation. The IBF is next because Michael Eifert has been the mandatory challenger much longer than David Benavidez.
The WBC knows that.
Michael Eifert became the IBF's mandatory challenger as of March of 2023, whereas David Benavidez doesn't come into it until June of the following year, June of 2024. So why is the World Boxing Council skipping ahead in the queue?
In other divisions, they have no issue adhering to a rotation, like Inoue at super bantamweight or Canelo at super middle, but here they've chosen to paint Dmitry into a corner, knowing he was committed to a trilogy
and knowing that they weren't next in the rotation anyway. Why?
because they wanted to gift David Benavidez an email title, an email belt. Now he's going to be email champion.
The question now is, who is he going to defend that belt against? Because ranked at number 1 is Artur Beterbiev, and we know he's about to fight Dmitry for the third time. Ranked at number 2 is David Morrell, who David Benavidez just fought. Ranked at number 3 is some guy named Albert Ramirez from Venezuela, hardly a worthy candidate to headline a pay-per-view with. And at number 4, you've got Alexander Vajdik,
who David Benavidez already fought over a year ago.
The way I see it, the World Boxing Council is in cahoots with Samson Lukowicz, working hard to get David an email title, but for all of that hard work, I suspect he may not even stay in this division.
Why?
Well, even with that title, you need opponents. You need names, and without those names, how are you going to headline pay-per-views moving forward? You want to fight in box office fights exclusively moving forward. To do that, well, you can't be fighting Albert Ramirez's of the world. You need to fight the names, the big ones, and that email title by itself won't get you those names.
All this time, that's what they were after, a vacant title.
They didn't want the Dmitry Bivol fight because if what you wanted was the Dmitry Bivol fight, you would have taken Turkey up on his offer to fight Callum Smith in the interim while you wait for the winner.
Don't forget, the week of the fight, for the 15 seconds that David Benavidez was in Saudi, he said he'd be willing to fight Callum Smith, so they offered him Callum Smith.
Hopefully, we might be looking at a future opponent, Callum Smith. We're both at 175. He just gave a great fight, and I think me and Callum Smith would be a great fight, so maybe we can make that happen in the future.
We received a large amount of millions to fight Smith, and we denied.
Did you catch that? Samson admitted they were made a multi-million-dollar offer to fight Callum Smith, which they rejected. Let's hear it again.
DJ, play it back.
A large amount of millions to fight Smith, and we denied.
Now, the way that David and his fans are going to frame this, they're going to say they were trying to fight Dmitry Bivol. They were trying to fight for Undisputed, knowing that the trilogy was next and knowing that they're not even next in the rotation.
All the while consorting with WBC behind the scenes to have a title emailed to them. A title that's of no use if you don't have the opponents.
And they don't. It's simple, really. If you wanted the winner of that fight, all you really had to do was wait for one more fight. You could have made the suggestion to Turkey that you take on Michael Eifert, or you take on Callum Smith while you wait on the undercard of Bivol versus Beterbiev 3.
One of them.
If that's what you're after, you work together. Whereas David Benavidez and his team have been standing apart from what's going on in Saudi for as long as it's been a subject.
I don't want to keep playing the same videos you've already seen in other episodes of the relay because then I'd just be repeating myself. They were insistent that the winner of that fight has to fight them in Vegas as if they're in any position to call the shots.
So I'm a bit bored with this subject. There's nothing new to add to it. This is what I said would happen. They're trying to push the envelope to get it a vacant title, and now they've got it, more or less.
Congratulations, you're an email champion.
The way I see it, David may not even hang on to that title very long, because without the names, what's it really worth? What I suspect is that he's still angling for a Zurdo Ramirez fight at cruiserweight, which is a lot easier for him to make.
And that's where I think he's headed.
He has to wait out the outcome of the upcoming Zurdo Ramirez versus Uniel Dorticos fight. And if Zurdo makes it through that fight, I expect that shortly after, him and Benavidez will fight.
If you've been following this channel the last year or so, you'll know that that's what I always thought the plan was. They were never committed to Undisputed in the light heavyweight division or facing the winner of Better B versus Bivol. Underneath it all, it was always their plan to go to Cruiser and fight Zurdo for his 2 alphabet titles because they identify him as an easier fight than a Bivol fight or a Better B fight.
One that doesn't require them to travel. One they can do in America without any involvement from Turkey Al Sheikh. And of course, this master plan would require Oscar De La Hoya's blessing, which I think they have, because think about it. What fight do you think Oscar would rather make? Do you think he wants to put Zurdo in there with Jayo Pataya, or would he prefer to put him in there with David Benavidez?
Be at the helm of the promotion. Instead of outsourcing your fighter to one of Turkey's shows, you get the run of the place.
You get to do it your way, without any involvement from him.
That's the plan.
Zurdo Ramirez versus David Benavidez isn't even a bad fight.
It's not, but it's not a better fight than a Bivol fight. It's not a better fight than a Better B fight.
This was always the plan, and the bit about them going through the WBC to ensure that before they leave this weight class, they get a vacant title, that's for optics. Because how would it have looked if they up and left this division without at least pretending that they wanted to fight Dmitry Bivol? That's what they're doing now.
Pretending.
You want to get Dmitry in the ring, you play ball with Turkey. That's how it works. Dmitry and his team have made it clear that they pledge their fealty to Turkey Al Sheikh because through him, they got the opportunity that the World Boxing Council wasn't going to give them. Remember, not that long ago, the World Boxing Council said they would not allow a Russian-born fighter to fight for any version of their belt. What caused them to soften their stance? Turkey.
Turkey Al Sheikh.
Turkey made not 1 but 2 undisputed title fights possible for Dmitry Bivol. Turkey gave him his highest purse, his highest payday, and for that, Dimitri's loyal to Turkey.
Team Benavidez knew that.
So that if you really want to get that guy in the ring, it's very simple. You play ball with Turkey, and if you don't, you can settle on having an email title, a title emailed to you. Whatever that's worth.
See how many pay-per-views that sells.
World Boxing Council President Mauricio Suleiman described the email correspondence sent to him by Dimitri's team as being cold and impersonal. But what would you call depriving a fighter of a world title opportunity for no other reason than where he was born?
You basically punished him for being Russian.
So that if push comes to shove and he has to vacate your title to stay loyal to Turkey, that's an easy decision to make.
Go ahead and give the title to David and see how much money that brings you.
He's been elevated to full WBC champion, but I anticipate he's not going to be there very long.
And all of this will have been much ado about nothing.